guest today, Mr. Jeff Fratarcangeli, class of 1999.
I got a lot to live up to. Thank you all for attending today. I was talking to some of the students who I've met over the years, and I said, where would you be today if it wasn't for this Saturday, or excuse me, this 1926 breakfast on a Friday morning? They said they'd be in class. So I imagine you want to thank me for putting this together and getting you all out of class. I remember those days when we didn't have to go to first mod were big. I want to thank a number of people that put this together. First, Coach Essler, very humbled when I got the phone call from you, and actually earlier this year he asked me to come speak to a couple of the classes, and when I got the call, I've got to be honest, I wasn't your typical student at De La Salle. I was a bit of a rebellious one, to say the least. The fact that I made it through, I think many of the teachers who saw me start out at De La Salle were very surprised. So I'm going to tell a little different story, and I think many of you out in the audience and some of your brothers that have graduated before you and some of you that, those that couldn't be here today, I can tell you firsthand that you are in a starting point here far greater than I was 30 years ago. Because 30 years ago today, roughly, I graduated from De La Salle in 1991. Barely. When I mean barely, right? I barely made it through. When I came and I started to look at high schools, I'll get into some of the thought process that went into that. But before I do that, other than Coach Essler, obviously I want to thank Coach Mukhtar, who's been, I would say, one of the 5 people in my life that helped mold me and prepare me for the tough world that's out there. It's a challenge. The world is extremely, as we know from the last couple of years, not only at De La Salle, but on this planet, it's a constant battle. It's a constant overcoming adversity. And Coach Mukhtar has been very critical in preparation for that ultimate life, and there's been many others as well. The teachers, Brother Robert Deary, I didn't forget being taught by him. He had to remind me which class, but I remember where I was sitting. I remember who sat next to me, and he reminded me a few of the topics. It's back there somewhere. Many other teachers that may be here or not, but Mr. Zakowski I remember very clearly. Many teachers that made an impact on me. Coach Buslip from back in the day when I played basketball early on in my career. Even the athletic director when I ran track. Many of these folks just made an imprint on me. They prepared me for life. Many others that I want to thank before I get into some other stories that I can share with you. Dennis Coach for constantly staying in contact. In addition, Gary Rancilli for being the president, continuing on the LaSallian ways and continue with that leadership that I was left with in my 4 years. All the board members, Chris Fett, one of my teammates for 3 of the years, who's over the years kept in contact. When my father was ill and had heart issues a few years ago, he was constantly checking on me. That's just an example of the brothers that are sitting next to you that you've gone to school with for the last 4 years or even prior. These are going to be your brothers forever. You may not talk to them for a year. You may not talk to them for 5 years. You may not talk to them for 20 years. They're still your brothers, and don't forget it. These are people that you'll never forget. I just heard one of my brothers that I graduated whose father passed away. I assure you I'll be reaching out to him shortly. These are your brothers forever. You're a part of a family. You're a part of an institution that you should take with you for the rest of your life. You have an identity. And I'm going to tell you something right now. I couldn't be more proud to be speaking to all of you, because I can tell you this. When I left De La Salle in 1991, there was no doubt that I wanted to come back and be proud of what I've accomplished and share my story and know that all of you and all of the teachers and all the people before me were a part of that. Me being able to carry on that LaSallian way and make my parents proud and ultimately have my kids see what I've endured and ultimately lead on and be a mentor to them to that next phase in life. This is an extreme honor for me to be a part of this. Going back to my early childhood, when I was getting ready to choose where I was going to go to high school, I was attending St. Hugo's Catholic School in Bloomfield Hills, Michigan, and really wasn't sure which direction I was going to go in. And to be completely honest with you, I was at a pivotal point in life. My parents had just gotten divorced, and I had lived in Troy, Michigan, but yet I went to St. Hugo, which was west, of course, of De La Salle, and I didn't know which direction I was going to go into, but I remember as I was a child growing up and listening to my grandparents speak about my uncles and looking at the newspaper, looking at, De La Salle constantly in the headlines, whether it would be track or basketball or football or academics or folks that had graduated from the institution. It was just always embedded in my brain what De La Salle was. It was the best. And that's, as Coach Mukhtar had said, I strive in everything that I do. I always want to be the best. So it became very easy for me. When my godfather, Sandy Fratarcangeli, a graduate of, I believe, 1965, he actually graduated with Brother Tom Lackey, many of you know. I remember him taking me to the open houses that many of you have been a part of. And I remember just taking it all in. I met Coach Mukhtar. I looked at the list of all the kids that were coming from different schools that I had competed against in basketball and soccer, and I was like, wow, this is something interesting, right? So I drove, my dad and I and my brother moved to Birmingham, Michigan, somewhere shortly after my freshman year, and I drove past Brother Rice, I drove past Country Day, I drove past Bishop Foley to go to De La Salle. And I'm going to tell you something, it was the best decision I had made, and it molded me and put me in a position so that I could have the opportunity to return this experience and the experiences that have come since to you. I'm so proud that I went to De La Salle and stuck it out, and I can tell you it wasn't a smooth ride. I remember my first experience post-choosing De La Salle. I also remember driving to St. Hugo's in my 8th grade year, the day after I got accepted from De La Salle, and I remember the pride that my father had that I had made it to De La Salle. It was very important to me, and I never, ever, ever wanted to let him down. And then I remember, shortly before I started my freshman year, I remember Coach Mukhtar called me up and he said, I'd like for you to leave your team, the travel team that I'd been playing for in soccer. Back then it was called Little Caesars. And he said, I want you to come play for this team that I'd never heard of. You know Coach Mukhtar, you don't say no, right? So I put on the jersey that I'd never won before, and I came and played with a bunch of players that I had never met before, and we played against a team by the name of the Carpathian Kickers. Brian Maisenoff was on that team. Many of you know about Brian Maisenoff, one of my co-captains my senior year. And I remember playing against the Carpathian Kickers, who we had beaten pretty steadily from the Troy Dynasty team that I played for. And lo and behold, I'm playing against these kids, and unfortunately, we didn't have all the players that we ended up having throughout my 4 years playing for Coach Mukhtar, and we took a beating, right? I remember it was 3-0 in the first half, and I was playing up front, and it was not fun. I don't like losing. I don't know if you heard that from Coach. But I said to Coach at the time, and it wasn't you, Coach, you had someone else coaching that team. I said, put me in sweeper. We may not win this game, but they're not scoring another goal, right? So lo and behold, they didn't score another goal, but one of the players took out our goalie. And I can tell you, it was the first and last time I did. The next move I made was I went at the guy that took out our goalie, and I got thrown out of the game. And I remember walking off the field feeling like, boy, Coach is going to really be proud of me. I stuck up for my teammate, and I really took the game into my own hands. I couldn't have been more wrong. He came on one side of me, and he came up and down the other side of me, and this little guy had so much power behind what he was saying to me, intimidated the hell out of me, and I remember he brought me to tears. There was no question. And I remember seeing my father in the right hand, at the corner of my eye, watching very closely what Mukhtar was doing. He was very protective of his boys and his daughter. By the way, I want to thank my sister and my brother-in-law for being here as well. Appreciate them being a part of this today. Jennifer and Dan. And I remember at the end of that pretty brutal discussion that we had, that was very clear that was not going to happen again. Not when I was wearing the purple and gold, and I can tell you this, it didn't happen again. And any of you that know me know that that's not an easy task to get me to contain myself and the passion that you feel, and I hope hear from me today. But there was no question I wasn't going to cross that line again. But what Coach did next is what stabilized and solidified the fact that I was going to be at De La Salle. He put his arm around me after ripping into me and telling me what wasn't acceptable, and he told me basically that he loved me. The guy had just met me, right? I barely knew the guy, and he told me he loved me, and I know, you know what? I believed him. There was no question in my mind. And that emulates what I felt for the next 4 years. And I got to tell you, I didn't make it easy on the staff at De La Salle to keep me in that school. I think there's rumors that they at times were wondering if they should have me back the following year. I'm so glad that folks like Coach Mukhtar and Brother Tom Lackey, and let's not forget Brother Bob. We all remember Brother Bob. I remember him on the sideline with that gum, waiting for us to come to put his arm around us and wish us the best. We never forget that. The brothers that were constantly there for us. We'll never, ever, ever forget Brother Bob. He was one of my favorite teachers. He was tough too. You guys all know that. Maybe you do, maybe you don't, but I can tell you, in his younger years, he was extremely tough. But then, of course, I went through my 4 years at De La Salle and ultimately made it to where you folks are today. And the preparation, the pride, the identity, the brotherhood that we all had together. And it wasn't a smooth ride, but I'll tell you what, it prepared us for life. It gave us the guardrails, and I need them. Let me tell you something, I need them. And before I forget, my wife, Nicole, who's sitting here that was introduced earlier, she's my guardrail. She keeps me on task. My 3 boys keep me on task. The fact that I want to be able to come back and look each one of you in the eye, and I want you to do the same with me, and look at each other and know that we gave it our all, and we represented this De La Salle properly in our next phase in life. And I'm going to also tell you something. Your next 2 years of college are going to be cake compared to what you went through at De La Salle. I just remember thinking, is this it? Is this all they got to offer? I mean, we learned this junior year. You are prepared. You are prepared not only mentally, you're prepared physically, and ultimately, you're going to go out there and you're going to make us proud. You're going to make us proud in the next phase and the following phase, and you're going to remember where you're from. I remember where I'm from. I get that phone call from De La Salle, other than getting a little nervous and thinking about what did I do now. I am very happy to hear from De La Salle. I'm very proud to be called back in and to be a part of this family that I hope someday my kids will be able to attend. I have 3 boys, 10, 8, and 3, and it would make me so proud to have them come back and be a part of this family at De La Salle and be a part of that process that I was so fortunate to be a part of. But I can tell you that life is tough. It's not an easy ride. And the things that I've watched De La Salle endure over the course of the last couple of years, just remember this. It's not getting to the top that's tough. It's that when you are at the top, they want to knock you down. Everybody wants to knock down. Why do you think everybody wants to beat the Yankees, right? Those pinstripes, right? Because you're the best. De La Salle has a history, has a foundation, and everybody wants to knock off that top dog. So just understand that when they stop talking about you, that's when you have to be concerned. And I know that we'll learn from any mistakes we've made and we'll get better from them. So when I hear these things, have a chip on your shoulder. Know that you're from De La Salle. Understand it's a part of the process. When I was here, they were coming at us then too. And you were just much further ahead 30 years later. The day they stopped trying to knock you off, that's the day you have to be concerned. So understand that and remember, give back. Give back. We are here on this earth to leave it better than we got it. And there's people out there that need our help. That if we have the fortunate benefit of giving back to them and helping in not just monetary ways, but being able to come in and teach, share your experiences, touch someone's life, disrupt, and make things better, you take that opportunity and you fully gravitate to it and you do your absolute best to leave an impression. When I got the call to say and come up and speak to you all, I got to be honest, I speak every day, but this presentation made me more nervous than any. It's not my typical presentation. I can say I remember sitting in your seats. I remember thinking what you were thinking. And I just want to make sure that I leave you with an impression. And I want you to think about this. When you think about where you want to be a year from now, where you want to be 5 years from now, what you want your life to look like 20 years from now, have a vision, write it down, put it somewhere you can see it. And every decision you make going forward from this moment on, you reflect upon what you want your life to look like. 12 months, 4 years, 20 years from now, what do you want to have your life and your history look like? And your decisions that you make going forward, keep those visions in mind of what you want to have as your experiences and what your name and what you're a part of. Just remember that. It'll make all those different choices that you have to make, that some of them are some of those easier choices aren't the right choices. Some of those constant scenarios that come at you that you'll be faced to choose, and I remember them, and I could have very easily gone the wrong direction. But it's the leadership, it's the folks that I have met over the years, not only at De La Salle, but I surrounded myself with people that I emulated, that I wanted to be like. I wanted to learn pieces from and take pieces from what they have endured and how they overcame these obstacles in life, and I wanted to be like them. You surround yourself with those people. Some of those people sitting next to you. Some of those people you're going to meet in that next chapter in your life. You surround yourself with people that you want to be like, and you learn from them, and you give back. Financially, you give back from your own heart. You give back in ways that you're going to help mold and change people's life like my life was molded and changed to be in a position to come back and speak to you. Don't ever forget where you're from. I thank you all for allowing me to be a part of this. And I look forward to hearing more about your successes in the future. I look forward to you all coming back and hopefully sharing those successes with me. And I hope someday I'm in the crowd listening. Thank you.